Now let's move along to the quarterback position. What is the outlook for quarterback recruiting in the 2025 class?
Yeah, Darren, we're kind of like in May. It's really just you'll have some commitments. Like Notre Dame's been hot on the recruiting trail just in the past week, landing a couple 2024 linebackers, Teddy Rizak and Bodie Cahoon. You got the transfer commitment and Antonio Carter. So it's a lot of commitments and coaches on the road. The work you did in the spring pays off to make commitments, and then June official visits, you usually will get those commitments in July, if that makes sense. So not a ton of super new stuff, but kind of did want to give an update on quarterback recruiting. Of course, Notre Dame has a pledge from CJ Carr in the 2024 cycle. After a little bit of speculation, maybe it was a little bit more in speculation, but any possible wavering that CJ Carr had about, Notre Dame after some coaching changes has all been put to bed. Carr's totally locked in with the Irish. So Gino Guidugli and the staff is starting to look ahead to 2025. And just a quick rundown of some of the names, Darren. Bryce Underwood from Belleville, Michigan is certainly at I don't know. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the country. On three zone rankings have him as the number one overall player. Across the board, he's the number one quarterback in the country. Like, this is a 5-star talent all the way. Has not visited Notre Dame yet, and I would consider this one a total long shot until Underwood, who stands at 6'3", 210 pounds, does visit the Fighting Irish. George McIntyre from Nashville, Tennessee. What is he? The nephew of former Colorado head coach and current FIU head coach, Mike McIntyre. And then his grandfather, was big time coach at Vanderbilt before my time. But McIntyre's the number 2 quarterback in the country, 6'5", 185, again from Nashville. Gino Guidugli has already been to his high school twice, and I believe just yesterday. So Notre Dame working there. Cutter Boley from Lexington Christian Academy in Kentucky, expected to commit to Kentucky this week. Yeah, he's announcing, I believe, on the 18th, and it seems like most industry insiders believe that he's going to stay in state. Antoine Hill, Notre Dame's offered him from Warden Robins, Georgia. That's the same hometown as Chancey Stuckey, Notre Dame's receivers coach. I would classify this one as a pretty long shot, kind of maybe even more of a long shot than Underwood, because at least Underwood's a Midwest kid. Hill, it's going to be hard to see him leave the South. Probably the same with KJ Lacey from Saraland, Alabama. I'm pretty sure, he's got an offer from Alabama already, and he gets compared to Bryce Young a good bit. That's going to be hard for the Irish to go in there, but I know that, Guidugli and company have had good conversations with him and building a good connection. Last but certainly not least, I know I'm kind of going through the names. I'm like, yeah, probably a long shot. I mean, they're swinging for the fences. I mean, we're talking about these guys are all the top quarterbacks in the country. I mean, the pretty big time competition here. But the one I do feel like Notre Dame has the best shot with currently, he's from Mississippi, Deuce Knight, a top 100 player per the On3 industry ranking, number 86 nationally and number 7 at his position. I think it's Ole Miss. I know Auburn's in there, Tennessee. So you got these SEC schools, but I know he had a really good time at Notre Dame in the spring. He's wanting to get back to South Bend in the summer. I know the staff is working on getting him back up to campus. And On3 recently ranked him as the number 4 quarterback in the class in their updates on Monday. So that's kind of the rundown. I feel the best about Knight. But I know, look, Guidugli, Darren, and I know we talked about him, and I want to say our interview a week or two ago about the job he's done. I mean, he is seeing quarterbacks nonstop in the 2025 class. I even think this is kind of, because we do this Coaches on the Road report every morning, and we say, hey, this is where we're hearing the staff is going to be. I want to say that Guidugli he's scouting some of these quarterbacks, and he knows he's not going to get them, or he might not even offer them. But he's going to scout all these guys so we can compare everybody. Like, again, I can't speak for him there, but that's kind of how I'll see where he's going. And I'm like, some of them just don't make total sense to me. Cause I'm like, I think it's because he wants to see every quarterback. I love that, Darren. Like, this guy's kicking butt on the recruiting trail. I don't know. I could be off base there, but again, I think the guy is kind of showing us a different level of, again, I'm not trying to throw shade at Tommy Reese, and I've said that before in talking about Gaduli. That's not my intention at all, but I just feel like Gaduli, just the way he's recruiting on the road, is just a little bit different than we're used to.
There's a different intensity. Just hearing you speak about the situation. I want to touch on two other things really quick, if you don't mind. You mentioned Cahoon and Rezac, the linebacker commitments that the Fighting Irish have picked up over the last week. Do you expect them to add one or two more linebackers? What's your read on what they still may do in the class at linebacker?
Yeah, so earlier in our discussion, I was talking about defensive line, and it's like, yeah, they may have 2 spots left, but there's like 8 guys they're still recruiting. It's similar for linebacker. I think they're just going to take one more.
Okay.
And Kingston Viliamuasa from St. John Bosco in Bellflower, California, looks like the top guy on the board, but they're still bringing in these other guys, for official visits in June. Keyshawn Flowers, Chris Cole, Brian Huff, the former 2 on the East Coast, Huff's from Arkansas. And some of these guys, just as a side note, Darren, some of these guys are listed as an edge. Some of them are listed as linebacker, but some linebackers are going to be Vipers at defensive ends at the next level. And some guys are listed at defensive end or edge or whatever, or they're going to play linebacker. So front 7, and sometimes it's hard for me to remember who's being recruited at what position, but Notre Dame is, and then they're so versatile. They play all these different spots, and then Notre Dame's like, oh, we'll just get you in here and figure out your position later. So that kind of makes it complicated. But yeah, Kingston Viliamuasa looks like the top guy on the board to keep an eye on, but they're not putting their eggs all in that basket. Again, that's at least my read on the situation.
I know we've talked about this guy in the past, but I just want to make a quick thought and maybe get your thoughts. But the Irish getting Antonio Carter, the safety from Rhode Island, watching some tape of him, he played corner a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. Why are we even talking about safety? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of versatility with this guy. I'm really curious to see what the Irish do with him. To me, he seems like a player that if everything works out for him, he could have a major role in this football team. This may not be just a depth piece. This might be a very important piece. Am I overrating him?
Heck if I know. I mean, he looks really good on film. I mean, he's playing FCS. You look at the offers he had. I mean, Florida, LSU. I mean, think about defensive backs or programs that send defensive backs to the NFL. I think those 2 are probably in your top 5, right? Bama, LSU, Florida, Ohio State, I'm sure are all up there in the top 5. It's interesting because when I watch his tape, I'm like, he's a corner. Why is everybody talking about safety? But I think he's going to be similar to Thomas Harper, who Notre Dame brought in to be, like a Tariq Bracy / Brandon Joseph replacement. It's the same here with Carter. And Darren, as we've talked in this interview, all these defensive linemen / Vipers / outside linebackers, it's all the same crap. They play everywhere. Look at last year. I mean, heck, you had hasn't Jordan Botelho played like middle linebacker at times? It's like who or Foskey? It's like for some of these positions, like the front 7, they just play everywhere. They just move around. I mean, JD Bertrand's going to play nose tackle. And obviously I'm kidding there, but seriously, like these guys are just moving around so much. It's kind of the same in the back end now. I mean, you're playing nickel, you're playing safety, you're playing some corner. I mean, think about someone like Clarence Lewis. I mean, he can play, I feel like, every defensive back positions. Some of these guys with their length and size and, just range, they can play all these different spots. So I think that's a good thing for Notre Dame. Now, does he pan out? We'll see. I think on paper, getting a guy who does have the potential to play 2 years, I mean, this is about as good as you can get from the transfer portal.
Well, the Irish had issues making plays on the football outside of Benjamin Morrison. So this guy was really good at anticipating throws. Now it was the FCS. There's going to be a jump going to major college football. But this is an intriguing guy, and I'm glad the Irish are taking a shot with him.